This is On the Line, and I'm Eric Felton. 4 Iranian Americans are being held against their will by the radical clerical regime in Iran. 2 of them, Middle East scholar Hala Esfandiari and social scientist Kian Tajbakhsh, were paraded on Iranian state-run television and forced to confess to vague crimes against the state. The other 2 American citizens, journalist Parnaz Azima and peace activist Ali Shakari, have also been charged with threatening Iran's national security. The United States is calling on Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, to release all Americans currently being held on groundless charges. State Department spokesman Sean McCormick said the U.S. is appalled at their mistreatment.
For the most part, these are people who have devoted large chunks of their lives to building bridges between the Iranian and the American people. So to prevent these kinds of people from especially leaving Iran really sends a negative message and is an unfortunate comment about the nature of this particular regime.
Americans, of course, are not the only political prisoners in Iran. Iranian democratic activists and protesters are routinely arrested and beaten by police and government-sponsored vigilante groups. Delaram Ali was among some 70 women's rights activists arrested for taking part in a peaceful demonstration in Tehran in 2006. They were protesting Iranian laws that discriminate against women. Though most of the women were later released, Delaram Ali was held for a year before being convicted of the so-called crimes of propaganda against the state and disrupting public order. She was sentenced to be whipped and imprisoned for another 3 years. Those imprisoned in Iran include journalists, student activists, labor leaders, and even dissident Muslim clerics. Amnesty International reports that Ayatollah Hossein Khamenei Borzadi has been sentenced to death, supposedly for waging war against God. He was arrested in October 2006 after calling for the separation of religion from politics. According to the U.S. State Department's latest human rights report, Iran's government flagrantly violated freedom of speech and assembly, intensifying its crackdown against dissident journalists and reformers, a crackdown characterized by arbitrary arrests and detentions, torture, disappearances, the use of excessive force, and the widespread denial of fair public trials. Joining us to talk about the state of human rights in Iran and U.S. policy toward Iran are Fakteh Zamani, Director of the Defense of Azerbaijani Political Prisoners in Iran; Roya Boramand, Executive Director of the Boramand Foundation for the Promotion of Human Rights and Democracy in Iran; and Heba Al-Shazli, Regional Program Director for the Middle East at the AFL-CIO Solidarity Center. Welcome and thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it. Roya Boramand, let's start by talking about the Americans who are being held in Iran right now. What's going on with that?
Well, these Americans, Iranian Americans, have done nothing illegal, nothing that the government did not know about. They've been carrying out projects for years, authorized by the government. So what is happening right now is that the government has a general policy of cutting contacts between the Iranian people and the West, and American in particular. And these people are one of the important vehicle of these contacts. And so they are deterring people to continue these contacts by giving this treatment to Haleh and Kian. So Haleh and Kian are paraded on television after being held months incommunicado, without visitation, without family visitation, nor an attorney, and they've been interrogated. And this is a practice that goes back to the inception of the Islamic Republic, where critics of the government or people whose agenda did not specifically match the ones of the government, be they revolutionary or monarchists or secularists or whatever, this treatment was given to them so that they stop associating and they stop speaking up. And so we have a parade of leftists, of religious people, of students, of activists, of all kinds of activists on television after months of torture and months of detention incommunicado.
Fakteh Zamani, this is a common thing in Iran, this kind of forced confession on television?
Yes, with minorities you see that Arabs, they had some activists, they were tortured, Baluchis were tortured to confess on TV, and also Azerbaijani, after May demonstrations, they tortured some young activists, forcing them to admit to receiving money from US government or Israeli government to organize demonstrations, while all the blame should have been directed on on insulting Azerbaijanis on a state-run newspaper. This is also happening with the students in minority regions. It's a common practice.
So among Azeri Iranians, there had been in a state-run newspaper, there had been cartoons insulting Azeri Iranians in the Iranian newspapers, and there were protests among Azeri Iranians that the government cracked down on, and then took the people who had been protesting and forced them to confess to being agents against the state of some sort.
Yes, we know that, we all know that in all the state-run newspapers, everything is checked thoroughly, and its censorship has been going on since the start of revolution. But they managed to get a cartoon out with an Azeri depicted as a cockroach, and they had 10 ways of killing these cockroaches, and this insulted this insult was distributed throughout the region in this newspaper, and people came out to demonstrate, not just for that, but it has been years of insults has been going on in the state-run newspapers and TV, and we saw what happened.
Well, Heba El-Shazly, how does this practice of forcing confessions and televising confessions affect activists who are engaged in labor relations?
In our particular situation with the labor unions, this goes back for the last 2 to 3 years, starting with the attempt to celebrate May Day in 2004 in Saqqez by a number of unions. They are independent unions, leading them with the bakery workers. They were beaten. They were not allowed to have their manifestation, their celebration, if you will, of May Day. Then we have the 17,000 bus drivers in Tehran. Tehran is a very congested city. The bus drivers are the main arteries of people's transportation within the city. They have a very, very hard job. They were asking for very basic things: the recognition of an independent union, parity of their wages with public employees, having 2 sets of uniforms for the summer and the winter. We're talking basic things, having an assistant in the bus to help them. So economic requests, if you will, economic demands. What has happened is their leader was beaten, taken to jail. A knife was taken to his tongue, where now he has a permanent lisp because they cut a piece of his tongue. Not only the leaders of this union, but their families, their children, they came into their homes in December of 2005. And while people were sleeping, to avert a large demonstration, hundreds were put in jail. Slowly they've been released. And today, again, Mansour Osanlu is now still in Evin prison.
And I have to say, there is something that links the minorities to the union driver, the unionists, to women activists, to student activists, is that all these people are trying to have some sort of associative life outside of the government and independent from the government. And you have to realize that in 1979, we were coming out of a dictatorship. However, we had some degree of autonomy in association. There were the bus union drivers were very important, the union, and some other unions. The government dismantled everything. Even the bar association was dismantled. And so slowly in the year 2000, these people have tried and believed that it may be possible to start again. And so the government is trying to get rid of that. These are horizontal movements that have no particular allegiance to the government and are worried about their own rights, the right to associate and the rights associated to their work or their future or their studies. And they have found solidarity, as you can see, outside Iran, horizontally, not with the states, but with their peers. And the government cannot tolerate that.